Celina bought a stone house on Halebrook Hill, a quiet place where everything finally felt like hers. She thought she was building a peaceful life with her husband, Jasper. But one evening, just as the house was coming together, he looked her in the eye and said, "Elara and Karis will be living with us. You'll just have to accept it." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just stayed still. But when they finally arrived at the house, none of them expected who would be standing on the front steps or what was waiting behind the door. If this moment made your heart skip a beat, leave a comment and subscribe to find out what happens next. Celina had always found comfort in quiet things: the scratch of a pencil on paper, the sound of wind brushing through ivy, the soft creak of wooden stairs at night. The house she bought was meant to be a new beginning, after years of emotional fatigue, personal loss, and a marriage that never quite felt safe. She believed that in rebuilding something old, she might find something steady. And for a time, it worked. Jasper showed interest in the renovations. He picked out rugs with her. He smiled at the way she painted the windowsills blue. He even joked about planting apple trees in the backfield. But something in his voice never matched his words. She noticed it most when he mentioned his daughter, Karis. There was guilt there. Guilt that eventually turned into obligation. Obligation that one day arrived as a declaration. They're moving in. He didn't ask. He didn't apologize. And as Celina stood in the kitchen, frozen in place with dishwater cooling on her hands, she realized this house, this life, might not be hers after all. Or at least not yet. Celina didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, her eyes fixed on the ceiling, tracing cracks in the plaster like veins branching across a body that no longer felt hers. Jasper had turned over hours ago, snoring faintly, unburdened. The room was still. Too still, and it pressed against her like the weight of snow on a roof that was just beginning to splinter. The words he said kept playing in her mind. Not just the message, but the tone. Calm. Final. "They're moving in. You'll have to accept it." As if she were a piece of furniture being told to scoot over and make room. As if her consent no longer mattered. The part that cut deepest wasn't the betrayal itself, but how ordinary he'd made it sound. Like an email reminder, a utility bill. By morning, Celina moved through the kitchen like a ghost. She boiled water, cracked eggs, set 2 cups on the counter. She moved with precision. Her face was neutral, and when Jasper came downstairs with that usual distracted hum in his throat, she smiled. "Coffee?" she asked. He kissed her cheek absently, took his cup, and began talking about Karis, about how excited she was to come, about how Elara was finally in a better place now, about how this would be good for everyone. Celina nodded, said nothing, listened. Because that was the one thing Jasper never did. She watched the steam curl from his coffee, her own cup untouched. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she remembered reading about termites, how they quietly eat through a structure until everything collapses in a single breath. She wondered how long Jasper had been chewing through the walls of their marriage, one silent bite at a time. That afternoon, when Jasper left to meet a client in town, Celina didn't cry. She didn't rage. She opened her laptop, searched for names she hadn't needed in years, and found one that made her pause. Ezra Huxley, property consultant. The last time she'd seen him was at an art exhibition in Bath. He had admired her sketches of collapsing buildings, called them elegantly brutal. She clicked the contact button. Her message was short. "I may be looking to sell, quietly. Are you available this week?" And just like that, the silence in her chest began to shift. Not into noise, but into purpose. Ezra Huxley arrived 2 days later, just before noon. Celina met him at the top of the gravel path, where ivy brushed against her boots and the wind carried the scent of distant rain. He stepped out of a dark gray Jaguar, impeccably dressed as always, navy coat, tan gloves, a blue scarf knotted neatly at his throat. He looked at her for a moment, then smiled with the same quiet understanding he'd had years ago. No questions, just eyes that said, "I see more than you're saying." Inside, she served him black coffee and led him through the house, room by room. She spoke plainly about the beams she'd restored, the antique tiles she'd salvaged, the original fireplace she'd uncovered beneath a false wall. Ezra took mental notes without interrupting, his expression soft but alert. When they reached the sunroom, the one Jasper always said he'd turn into a reading lounge but never lifted a finger, Celina stopped walking. She rested a hand on the windowsill and looked out toward the stone path leading to the guest cottage. "I need this handled quietly," she said. "I don't want my name attached publicly, no listings, no photos online, and no leaks." Ezra didn't flinch. "Discretion is my specialty," he replied. "And your ownership is protected under the trust, correct?" She nodded. "It's in my name only. Set up before the wedding. Jasper has no legal claim. He doesn't even know how it's structured." Ezra leaned back slightly. "Smart." Celina turned to face him fully. "I want to sell it, Ezra, fast. To someone who will appreciate it, not flip it, not gut it. Someone who understands the work I've put into this place." "I know just the pair," he said, smiling gently. "They've been waiting for something like this for years." "Do they have to wait long?" she asked. He shook his head. "Give me 3 days. I'll bring them to see it myself." Celina exhaled. Not relief exactly, but the first breath that didn't feel like a cage. She walked him out, thanked him with a look, and returned inside just as Jasper pulled into the drive. His timing, as always, was flawless. He waved from the car. Celina waved back, her face calm. He would never suspect. Because while Jasper was busy bringing his past into their future, Celina was quietly writing the ending, one he'd never see coming. 3 days passed with a deceptive calm. Celina continued her routines, making breakfast, answering emails, watering the lavender near the kitchen window. Jasper grew more animated by the hour, caught in a wave of nostalgia and self-justification. He told her how Elara had struggled lately, how Karis missed him, how this would heal the broken parts. He spoke like a man casting himself as the noble one in a story she hadn't agreed to tell. Celina smiled and stirred her tea. When Ezra returned, he brought Mr. Lowell and his partner, Ezra Huxley, not to be confused with the agent himself, but the man who shared his name and life. They arrived in a subtle black vehicle, dressed simply but with the kind of tailored elegance that never tried too hard. Mr. Lowell was tall and silver-haired, with a gaze that noticed everything and commented on nothing. Ezra, his Ezra, was younger, sharper, with a quiet reverence for space. They said little during the tour, but Celina saw the way their eyes lingered on the fireplace, the molding, the soft gold light spilling through the archway. It was the kind of looking that came from people who loved old things, not to own them, but to understand them. In the sitting room, Ezra Huxley, the agent, laid out the documents. Celina signed with a steady hand. "Do you want to notify him yet?" he asked, motioning discreetly toward the hallway, where Jasper had just come in from the garden. "Not yet," she said. "Let him have his moment." And Jasper was certainly having one. That night, over dinner, he laid out his vision. Karis would take the small upstairs bedroom. Elara would get the guest suite. He'd asked his assistant to have the piano moved from her old apartment to the sunroom. His sunroom, the one Celina had repainted by herself over a weekend of silence. She let him talk. Let him believe. Every detail he shared etched the outlines of a man who saw himself as generous, selfless, the savior of two women who never asked to be rescued. Celina smiled. The next morning, Jasper stood by the front gate, holding a clipboard and gesturing toward imagined furniture layouts. "They'll be here Friday," he said. "You'll see. It's going to work. It's going to bring everyone together." Celina nodded, her expression warm. Friday. He kept saying it like it was a beginning. But for her, it was a date already circled on the calendar. For the end. Friday morning arrived beneath a sky the color of stone. Celina woke early, brewed coffee, and stood at the back window, watching mist curl through the hedges like smoke. She didn't feel nervous. Not exactly. Just quiet. Still. Like the seconds before a violin's first note. The house was clean. Empty. Cleared of any trace that she had ever tried to make it feel like home. She left the keys on the table, polished the brass handles one last time, and walked out the side door with a leather bag slung over her shoulder and her phone set to silent. By the time Jasper pulled into the driveway, she was already gone. He didn't notice. He was too busy smiling at the rearview mirror, where Karis sat half asleep, earbuds in, tapping her fingers against her jeans. In the passenger seat, Ilara applied a neutral shade of lipstick and adjusted her sunglasses, her expression unreadable. Jasper turned off the ignition and stepped out, breathing in like a man who had accomplished something noble. "We're here," he said. The house looked beautiful in the morning light, still timeless, freshly rained on. The ivy had grown thicker across the east wall, and the small blue chair under the pear tree had been straightened. Everything was just as he remembered. "Karis, sweetheart, come see the garden," he called. "You're going to love this." She climbed out, half interested. Ilara followed, scanning the property with mild caution. "I don't see her car," she said. "Celina's probably out," Jasper said casually. "She's fine with all this. Really." They made their way to the porch, where the front door waited wide and warm. Except it wasn't. Jasper reached for the key in his pocket, slid it into the lock, and turned. Nothing. He tried again. A slow twist, then again, faster. Still nothing. "That's strange," he muttered. Ilara crossed her arms. "You sure that's the right one?" "Of course it is. I've used it a dozen times. This must be stuck." But just as he reached for the doorknob again, the front door opened. Not by him. A tall man in his 60s stood in the doorway. Silver hair, linen shirt, calm eyes. He looked at Jasper with polite curiosity. "Yes?" the man asked. Jasper blinked. "We live here." The man raised one eyebrow. "Do you?" Ilara frowned. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" The man stepped back slightly, and another figure appeared behind him. This one, younger, dark-haired, sharp-featured, holding 2 mugs of tea. "I'm Mr. Lowell," the older man said gently. "And this is Ezra. We just moved in." Jasper stared at him. "What do you mean, moved in? This is our house. I live here with my wife." Ezra handed Mr. Lowell one of the mugs. "You might want to call her," he said simply, "because as of this morning, this house no longer belongs to you." Jasper's mouth opened, but no sound came out. And somewhere, far from the hill, Celina's phone stayed dark and silent. Jasper stood on the porch, like a man waking from anesthesia, aware of movement and sound, but none of it fully registering. His fingers were still on the useless key in the lock, his mouth half open. Mr. Lowell and Ezra had stepped back inside without fanfare. The door closed gently behind them, the finality of the click cutting through the morning like a blade. Beside him, Ilara shifted. What the hell is going on? Jasper cleared his throat. There's been a mistake. It's a mix-up with the trust. Celina didn't tell me she was selling. She wouldn't. She couldn't. But even as he said it, doubt curdled in his chest. Karis stood behind them, earbuds dangling, arms crossed, eyes darting from her father to the door and back again. "Dad?" she asked. "Where are we supposed to sleep?" "I'm calling her," Jasper said quickly. He pulled out his phone, dialed Celina's number. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same. The sun, moments ago so golden and welcoming, now glared harshly against his forehead. Elara didn't wait. "You said she was fine with this. You said we were all moving in. Did you even ask her?" "She said it was okay," Jasper insisted. "She smiled. She didn't argue. She made me breakfast, for God's sake." Elara stared at him. "You've always taken silence as permission. It's not the same thing." His hands were trembling. "Maybe she's just out. She'll explain." "She's not out," came a voice behind them. Mr. Lowell had opened the door once more, now holding a manila envelope. "She left this on the kitchen table. I assumed it was for you." Jasper stepped forward slowly. Mr. Lowell handed him the envelope and disappeared back inside without another word. Inside, Jasper found a single sheet of paper, folded twice. Celina's handwriting. Neat, controlled. "You told me I had to accept it. So I accepted it. In my own way. Good luck finding a space for 3 in what's already gone. C." His throat dried. The words blurred. His hand dropped to his side, the paper limp. Karis looked up at him. "Dad, are we not moving in?" He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Elara, ever the sharp one, narrowed her eyes. "She didn't just leave," she said coldly. "She planned this." And Jasper, finally, began to understand the full shape of what had been taken from him. Celina waited in the quiet corner of a cafe tucked off a cobbled street 2 towns away. Her coat was folded neatly beside her, her hair pulled back, her fingers wrapped around a lukewarm mug of chamomile tea she hadn't touched. It was 9:42 a.m. He was already 12 minutes late. She didn't expect him to come, but she had left the message anyway. "Meet me tomorrow." 9:30. 1 conversation. No scenes. The bell over the door jingled. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. She knew his footsteps, the rushed rhythm of a man who'd just discovered the limits of his control. Jasper slid into the chair across from her. His eyes were bloodshot, jaw clenched. He didn't speak immediately, just stared. Like looking at a ghost he hadn't expected to fear. Celina set her mug down gently. "You got the letter." He nodded, throat moving like he was swallowing glass. "You sold it?" "Yes." "You blindsided me." "No," she said calmly. "You blinded yourself." He shook his head, voice low. "You made me look like a fool, in front of Elara, in front of Karis." Celina met his gaze. "You did that. The moment you made a decision for our life without me in the room." "I was trying to fix something," he said. "They needed help." "And I didn't?" Her voice didn't rise. "Do you know what it felt like to pour myself into something brick by brick, only to have you turn it into a reunion venue for the life you never left behind?" Jasper looked away. "You could have talked to me." She tilted her head. "Like when you talked to me? About moving them in? About replacing our guest room without even asking if it hurt?" Silence. She leaned forward slightly. "This wasn't revenge, Jasper. It was a boundary. The only one you could hear." He opened his mouth, then closed it. A dozen weak apologies hovered unsaid between them. He began, then stopped. "What happens now?" Celina stood, her chair scraping softly on the tile. She slid her coat on with measured grace, picked up her bag, and looked at him for the last time. "Now," she said, "you live in the space you tried to make mine." Then she turned and walked out. No theatrics, no final glance, and Jasper, left alone in a cafe that suddenly felt far too quiet, finally understood what it meant when someone leaves before they're truly gone. Celina didn't cry after the cafe. She didn't shake or second-guess herself. When she stepped out into the crisp morning air, the sky was cloudless and sharp, and the wind lifted the hem of her coat like an exhale. She walked to the train station 2 blocks away and boarded without looking back. No messages, no calls, just a ticket and forward motion. For the next week, she stayed in a rented flat near the coast, a place with peeling shutters and ocean light that poured across the floor in slow gold sheets. She filled the space with silence, not sadness. She cooked for herself, read again, fell asleep with the window open and the sound of gulls replacing Jasper's morning muttering. It was strange, at first, the absence of tension. The quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Ezra called 3 days later to confirm that the transaction had been finalized. "They love the house," he said. "They're already planting in the garden." Celina smiled at that. Not out of sentiment, but because she'd chosen well. That house deserved people who listened. She packed lightly when she left the coast. 1 suitcase, 1 sketchbook, her laptop, and a small box of graphite tools. Rome was waiting. An old colleague had offered her a studio position in a private art therapy program tucked behind a basilica courtyard. She'd accepted the offer days ago, without ceremony. She didn't tell many people. She didn't owe many explanations. Her mother, when she finally called, didn't ask questions. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I knew you'd find your own way out." Celina didn't correct her. She hadn't just found her way out. She'd designed the door, then walked through it. Then, Rome welcomed her with a kind of indifference Celina appreciated. It didn't ask questions. It didn't flinch. The city moved around her with old, stubborn rhythm. Bells ringing, scooters darting, sunlight cutting through alleyways like blades of glass. She found it comforting, this place too full of history to care about hers. The apartment was small, but flooded with light. 2 rooms, 1 window with a crooked latch. Her landlord was an architect who loved espresso and hated small talk. They got along fine. Her work at the studio began slowly, observing, assisting, listening. The sessions weren't dramatic, just people, broken in quiet ways, trying to feel again. Some sketched, some sat in silence, some cried into paper. Celina didn't fix anyone. That wasn't her job. But she offered space, tools, permission. And in doing so, she began offering it to herself. She kept a sketchbook but didn't draw the house, not once. She drew staircases that led nowhere, windows without glass, chairs with only 3 legs. There was something freeing in the imperfection. She stopped trying to make things whole. She let them be what they were. Unfinished, uneven, true. Sometimes, at night, she'd stand on the small balcony and look over the rooftops. Rome breathed differently than Dorset. It didn't hold its breath. It exhaled endlessly, like a city that knew how to live with the weight of its ruins. One morning, 2 months after she arrived, a message blinked on her phone. No number. Just a name. Jasper. She didn't open it. She didn't delete it either. She just looked at it. For a while. Then she slid the phone into the drawer of her writing desk, closed it gently, and went out for coffee. Because the past doesn't always deserve a reply, and some closures don't come in words. They come in quiet mornings, in foreign cities, with no one waiting for you to come home. Because you already are. Months passed. Spring arrived early in Rome. The trees in the courtyard below Celina's flat bloomed soft pink, and the air turned warm enough for open windows and linen dresses. She had learned the names of the baristas, how to navigate alleys without maps, how to say "I'm still learning" in flawless Italian. And she was still learning how to trust her instincts, how to breathe without waiting for something to collapse, how to make a home without walls. One afternoon, she sat in the studio's garden, surrounded by terracotta pots and the scent of rosemary, flipping through her sketchbook. She paused on a page she didn't remember drawing. A simple doorway, slightly open, light pouring through the crack. She traced the pencil lines with her thumb, then closed the book and smiled to herself. She no longer thought of Halebrook Hill every day. Not out of bitterness, just because the place had finally become what it was meant to be. Something finished. A chapter, not a chain. Ezra had sent one last email weeks ago with a photo. The house under new sunlight, ivy trimmed back, the garden full of lavender and new growth. Mr. Lowell and Ezra, the couple, had added a bench beneath the pear tree. The image didn't sting. It settled. Celina saved the photo to a folder labeled "Things I Let Go Of." And one morning, without fanfare, she started a new sketch. It was not a house. It was not a person. It was a horizon. Wide, open, undefined. Because this time she wasn't rebuilding. She was simply moving forward.